Frosty Faustings is the final event of the Guilty Gear Strive World Tour. Some of the strongest Guilty Gear players from around the world flew to Chicago, Illinois for a chance to qualify for the last main slot of the World Tour Finals. For myself and many other players, this tournament is especially important because of the format of the tour itself. In order to earn the right to be one of the top 16 competitors in the finals, you need to either win one of the designated events, of which there are 12, or be top 3 in points on the leaderboard over the course of the entire year. However, qualifying by points is quite difficult. So the main thing is that the tour considers all the tournaments evenly regardless of the size. So TSM Leffen, who won EVO 2023, which again was one of the biggest Guilty Gear Strive tournaments ever with over 2,000 entrants, is weighed the same as something like Brussels Challenge in Belgium or Battle Coliseum in Brazil. Battle Coliseum having somewhere around 200 entrants, and to my knowledge, Brussels had around like 70 or 80, despite the high level of competition. Now you might be like, hey, you're missing something. You're only accounting for 15 spots, 12 tournaments, 3 people by points. Where does the last slot go? Good, that tells me you are paying attention. So the last spot goes to the player that wins the last chance qualifier. Now, I don't know if like other video games do this. I don't know if there's a good way to say that, but generally in fighting games, either national finals or world tour finals, they'll usually save a slot for somebody to fly in and enter a tournament either the day before or the week of, and the winner of that tournament will get the final one slot. To my memory, in my fighting game experience, the only person who's ever come close to winning a tour from last chance qualifiers was the first year Dragon Ball FighterZ, where Fenrich, the Japanese player who is on the same team as Cyclops Koichi, I believe they're still on Cyclops, editor check, went from winning the LCQ to making it to grand finals against Kazunoko. That should let you know how difficult it actually is for someone to make a deep run from the LCQ. So that's what we call last chance qualifier. By the way, we're going to be calling it LCQ anytime we mention it in this video. So for me, realistically, my last chance to qualify would be Frosty Faustings. While I did get points on the leaderboard for making top 8 at Battle Coliseum, it is far from enough to be one of the top 3 entrants. So I basically, if I even wanted a chance at qualifying, had to win the tournament. Personally, I did not even get a chance to start competing on the tour until EVO 2023. So before Frosty Faustings, I entered EVO, CEO Otaku 2023, and Battle Coliseum 2023. And I only finished 5th at Battle Coliseum. So how do you even get ready for a tournament like this? Fighting game players tend to prepare a lot by just playing the game a lot. And in my opinion, this is really important too. However, you have to be both playing to play the game and also to improve your character. So you're thinking about finding ways to make whatever character you're maining better, but then also finding ways to fight other characters better as well. Brackets are also very important to prepare for, but they usually release brackets the week of, if not a couple of days before the event, besides a couple of small exceptions, such as EVO. At Frosty, I decided I would put slightly more effort into preparing for players because of the scale of the tournament. Frosty Faustings started as a small grassroots tournament, but now it's one of the biggest events of the year, and this year was no different. At 719 entrants and a huge spread of top players, it would be impossible to prepare for every single player in attendance. On top of that, fighting game tournaments also have a double elimination bracket. So there's so many possible things that could happen in case I lose and drop the losers bracket that I generally just focus on the winner's path to the best of my ability, and when I go to losers, I just do my best. So for this tournament, I looked at from pools up into the potential top 8 qualifier. That being said, I didn't really prepare for pools at all. So why not get ready for pools? There is seeding done, and while it's good to look through them for sure, to be honest, this time I didn't really recognize any of the players in my pool. So I decided specifically to start from top 192. My first match there would be a player named Scambolini. Hopefully I said that right. I've been saying his name wrong like the whole weekend at the tournament. I even talked to him, like we played board games, and like every other time I say his name wrong. So I hope I said it right. Okay. He's not a super well-known player, but if you follow Guilty Gear Strive tournaments, you would have heard his name before. He mains Kai Kisuke. So Kai is a simple character with a simple ability. If he uses any move that has electricity on it, you'll be put in shock state, which makes it so that he powers up some of his special moves. However, over the course of the game, they've continued to improve his neutral and his offense, making it hard to find openings and punish opportunities. While Baiken has amazing offense and defense against the character, the neutral game is difficult because he can act from anywhere on the screen, while she needs to be generally closer. On top of that, he can hit confirm all his hits into combos, where Baiken generally cannot, has a fast low profile attack, and just generally builds resources faster than Baiken does. So if I beat Scambolini, then my next opponent would be Oni Tiger Pop, one of the best Happy Chaos players in the world out of the United Kingdom. Simply put, Happy Chaos is one of the villains of the game, both in the story and tournament play. Correct me if I'm wrong about the story, I guess. So Happy Chaos is a neutral and offense style character, where most characters have punch, kick, slash, heavy slash, and dust as buttons. Happy Chaos actually sacrifices his heavy slash button for this. He pulls out a gun like a real American, even though I know he's Irish. Hey, okay. The gun puts a reticle on the screen, and this reticle tracks the opponent pretty much anywhere and enables all sorts of neutral control and mix-ups. He can improve the tracking on it by cursing you first, where on the normal gun it might not look so crazy. With a combination of a couple of power-ups, it turns into the best tracking in the game and some of the best I've seen in fighting games, frankly. Tiger Bob has multiple great results in the tour already and had a high chance of qualifying by points. His unique approach to the character, being more focused on offensive mix-ups and less on zoning, made him a crowd favorite even though the character is not, for lack of a better word, not that popular, and made him one of the top seeds at this super stacked event. Baiken has also historically struggled against his character, and I've definitely been eliminated by Happy Chaos multiple times. And specifically in the previous patch, I thought he was one of her worst matchups, and pretty much running into a Happy Chaos, let alone a world-class one, used to be a dead end in brackets for any Baiken player. Thankfully though, we got a recent patch that kind of toned down some things about Happy Chaos that could potentially turn things in my favor. Now, whether or not I beat Tiger Pop or lose to Tiger Pop, what happens to me is pretty ambiguous because up until now, it's pretty easy to build out what could possibly happen. But because the tournament is so big, the deeper you go, the more things that can happen. So two things pretty much happen here. So regardless of winning or losing, I get into the final 48 out of the 719, no matter what. The only decider would be would I go in from the winner side or the loser side. Preferably, you want to go in from the winner side because you just get to play less games, which is great. The tournament starts on Friday, but finishes on Saturday, so there's some people whose entire tournament will be on Saturday, and finals are at night, starting at 9 p.m. CST. If I go to losers, there are so many things that could happen, it's impossible to prepare for. If I go to winners, there is still some variability, but not as much. If I was to beat Tiger Pop, then I would play the winner of Paragon Adventure versus Moist Hotashi. If you don't follow competitive Guilty Gear, what I'm about to talk about next should really give you the scale of this tournament and why we call it a super major. So Adventure plays Jacko. He won CEO 2023. He eliminated me in basically what I could call a nail biter. And after that proceeded to demolish the rest of his opponents who were not prepared to fight Jacko Valentine. Then his opponent, Moist Hotashi, won the first EVO in NA, the online event, over Sonic Fox and pretty much put Nagoriyuki on the map. And many of the qualifiers for top 48 on the winner's side are matches on this scale. And if not that, then the next one would definitely be something like that. That being said though, I felt like I had a decent chance against both players. The Adventure plays more characters right now. So there's Jacko, there's Sen, Kisuke, and there's Anji. The character I've seen from him the most recently is Anji. Baiken vs Jacko mostly got easier because of system changes and Jacko getting some nerfs. The main one being that when I burst, Jacko cannot pull a minion. It might sound funny, but the patch I played Adventure at CEO, when I burst him, he got to pull out his minion, which is what he needs to win. But then when he bursts me, he gets to do it too. So it was really, really, really bad to try to get in on him. Anji is also worrisome because he's gotten some pretty big buffs in this recent patch, but Baiken does pretty well against him, so I thought it'd be okay. For Hotashi, he said he was going to play Bridget the entire tournament, which for me would have been a sigh of relief because Baiken has historically struggled against Nagoriyuki, while Bridget is a pretty good matchup. While Bridget has extremely strong rushdown and unstable 50-50s, there are gaps in her strings, and with good knowledge, you can slip right out with Baiken. Bridget also has kind of low HP, which is a death sentence against Baiken when she actually gets to convert. Getting past that set would mean I would reach the top 8 qualifier, which would have me potentially playing the winner of Jonathan Tene, my teammate on Beast Coast, versus Slash, the strongest Mei player. Both of these players are also already qualified for the World Tour Finals. So getting past one of these two would be incredibly difficult. To be honest, probably the easier of the two for me would be Jonathan Tene because he's not on the character he qualified with, Zato. He is on Soul instead. However, he's one of my training partners and he's aware of many of Baiken's small intricacies and her various techniques, so it would be hard to catch him off guard. Slash, on the other hand, has played Mei for the entirety of the game's lifespan, taking advantage of her fast play and high damage combos to break out big wins. Traditionally, Baiken has actually had a pretty big advantage against Mei, but with the addition of a new mechanic in Season 3 called Wild Assault, the more I play against Mei, the more I think Mei probably has the advantage against Baiken. And finally, Mei is pretty uncommon in North America, and usually my main advantage against people who are not from North America is that they don't really have very high level Baiken experience or technical Baiken experience, so we would be even in this regard. So with all the prep out of the way, I fly to Chicago on Thursday and get ready for my pool on Friday. So my first set on Friday was against a Jacko player who all I saw in the bracket was the name Elfelt Nation. So I did get caught off guard. I thought I was going to play against a Elfelt player, instead it was a Jacko player. So this set was pretty wild. And I lost game 1 pretty convincingly, but a couple of small adjustments against this player helped me clinch the win. So the first thing actually revolved around this string. So using the new mechanic, Jacko can set a minion safely. Normally you have to play a guessing game around this, and the Jacko player will pick from various options. So stuff like this, either something like this, something like this, or something like this. Thankfully, most Jacko players start with this type of sequence because they want to start with a big advantage, so I had various counters prepared. That being said though, I was overwhelmed in game 1. Jacko's pace is very quick. So I took advantage of Baiken's defense, and instead of holding this over and over, I disrespected with both parry and backdash in order to stop them from getting their game plan so easily. Once I established that pace, that set was fine. The next set was against another one of the villains of the game, this time against a Leo player, played by a very nice guy named Bozo. The problem with Leo is that he has one of the best throws in the game and he can do ambiguous left-right mix-ups. On top of that, he has very strong neutral pokes, and in the case that he whiffs, he is both very mobile and also has a guard point he could follow up on. On top of that, he has one of the best step dashes in the game, best dashes straight up, and a lot of buttons in this game are disadvantaged, so he's trying to run into your disadvantaged buttons. That being said, because I have had such a bad history against this character, I took a long time to build Leo's strategy with Baiken, and she has a couple of really important things that are good for fighting him. The main thing being that she can protect space really well against the character, and since he can't straight up run at you, you can protect yourself with both the chain, 2H, bar slash, among other moves. It is really important to see whether or not a Leo player is swinging into you. After one round, I could really tell they were relying on the dash block approach and not swinging on slash and heavy slash in the guard point. Even more, they were scared to directly attack me after throw because they were scared of my parry. So with these realizations, I was able to keep my game plan and win in a clean 3-0 compared to the 3-1 versus Jacko. So because of my seed, that means I already qualified for top 192, which is great, but just like I explained before, you have to play a set to determine whether or not you're in the winner side or the loser side of that. You might think that's kind of a weird system as an aside, but this, I'm pretty sure Smash players were the first ones who thought of this. This system does not prevent double jeopardies from happening, but it greatly reduces the chances of them happening. I believe by like 85, 86%, something like that. Think of it as fighting game tournaments just removing a really annoying boss check from the event. So next I played against Bookworm Potemkin. So Potemkin actually recently got some buffs. When the game came out, he was considered either mid-tier, or some people would say he was like high-tier, like pretty strong character. But the addition of other characters, plus other characters getting buffs, and Potemkin not really getting anything, and people learning how to fight him better, system mechanic changes. It might sound like I'm going on, but a lot of things have actually made it so that he dropped through the ranks. So this current patch is probably one of the most meaningful patches he's had since the game has come out. Similarly to vs. Leo, I believe there's basically two main styles of Potemkin players I'm checking for. Either a Potemkin that is slamming on special moves, or a Potemkin player that is slabbing on normals. So this might look silly to you, but there are merits to actually both of these. In the case of special moves, just doing a special move gives him a small amount of meter, and if you block, then you get even more, and then if you get hit for any reason, you get knocked down, so he's in a good situation. His special moves in general are also all quite good. So not only do you have Slide Head, which is not fast and actually kind of easy to avoid, you can backdash on a reaction, but it does have armor, and most of the time characters are not fast enough to follow up unless they're swinging into him with like a kick or something, which is pretty difficult because remember, he has these giant normals you'd have to get through first. This is a tricky move to see because he's off the ground really quickly, and it does quite look like his jump. His fist also hit very, very low, so it's pretty much impossible to anti-air this. In the case of the normals, they are quite big and disjointed. The specific one that's worth talking about is his 5H. So there's a very annoying range where his 5H will whiff, but if I do my H comedy, I will get hit. So even though both look silly, they both have merit. He's not fast, but it's also not easy to get hit on him, and he has the most HP outside of special exceptions like Geo with 100 meter or Asuka when he has mana. So he doesn't go down quickly either. So my check is to see whether or not it's a special move bot or normal spot, and it end up being the latter. So because of that, I keep the space of just outside 5H, let him whiff, and then approach at my own pace, slowly, no rush. So I take that with another 3-0. So this brings us back to earlier in the video. So now that we're in top 48 winners, my first opponent is Scambolini. I have a couple of big advantages against him. One, I watched him play against a Baiken online, and two, from watching that, I was pretty sure he doesn't have like technical knowledge of the character. He clearly knows how to fight the character and knows her moves, her special moves, things that have gaps, things like that, but not like the intricate technical knowledge that I use to try to fight people. And of course, I abuse this. Kai actually has a lot of little tricks that are pretty hard to deal with for most characters, but Baiken can actually deal with them pretty easily. So a big point I alluded to before was Baiken's offense against Kai as an example of a tactic that I use. And on knockdown, Kai has, you know, this reversal, and Baiken is kind of known for doing a combo into this tatami mat. And if the opponent doesn't have a meterless reversal, it's pretty good. You have a lot of advantage. You can follow up the strike throw, high-low, especially if you have meter, high-low. Meterless to high-low reward is not so great, but with meter, it could be round defining. The problem is though, unlike the ground version of Tatami Gaishin, where the stomp has a lot of block stun, the air version of Tatami has like no block stun. So it can be pretty difficult to see what the opponent is actually doing. So if you do this too quickly, which I see a lot of people do, you'll get hit even though you would have been safe if you blocked. But even if you do this correctly, which is like this, so you're dashing and blocking for a second and doing close slash, the tatami has so little blocks that you can't actually see what the Kai player does after you block the tatami. And usually when you dash out of this, there's a small gap. So in order to avoid that, instead of using the tatami mat, I use her jump heavy slash, which has far more block stun and is way more easier to see what's going on. And if they block it, they definitely cannot reversal out, which is a huge part of my offense. Another big issue came from the meter gain. So Kai is both faster than Baiken and he can attack anywhere on the screen. So what I mean is, you might think of his attacks as like these sword attacks, but he can actually do stun edge like anywhere. So here, here, and even this. So while I want to be in this range when I can, he's faster than me. It's not always going to be so easy to get him in the position that I want. We have ways to both deal with the ground normal stun edge and most importantly, the charge stun edge. So some characters can like low profile, but it's actually pretty difficult for Baiken to do, and I'm pretty vulnerable. 6P is also a pretty good option, but in the heat of a match, the closer you are, the harder this is to do. Jumping is a decent answer, but Kai players usually run after you, and unlike other Arxis games, your air dash back is really short. So one answer I really like to do is to use Jump D. So Jump D moves you backwards, and it goes half the height of her jump height. So this is her jump, and this is her jump D. Charge stun edge can also be a problem. It's not a fast move, but Baiken really doesn't have any attacks that hit out there outside of her gun super. but charge stun edge is meterless. Thankfully, Baiken has a really good answer with Tatami Gaishi. While the air version unfortunately does not do this, the ground version just kills projectiles. So he would need some specific counterplay to deal with this, and usually people who have never run into this who have slow projectiles are pretty confused on how to deal with it. So thanks to these and some special mix-ups, we pushed through Scambellini as well. So next comes Tiger Pop Happy Chaos, and I tried to practice a lot for this matchup. So a big downside for me is he is familiar with the character, as there's a really strong Baiken player out of United Kingdom as well named Jojo who was coming a lot to North America to compete. While I put up a decent fight, the main problem about fighting Happy Chaos is that he converts absolutely everything into full combos, where Baiken can't quite do so. While I'm doing a good job in the mid-range, everything he does that makes contact to me is just way more valuable than things I do that makes contact with him. And frankly, it's an uninspiring 3-0 in his favor. Like I explained before, that was to determine positioning in top 48, so we both made it. He moves on in winners to play the winner of Adventure vs Otashi, while I drop down in losers to play who knows. Like I mentioned before, there's a lot of variability in the losers bracket. To my surprise, the first match I have to play in losers top 48 is the other best Baiken in the United States, a friend of mine, Shine. The Baiken mirror match is a really odd mirror match. Her main defensive mechanic is the parry, and a lot of her offense has gaps. So there's a lot of guessing games going on. There are ways, of course, to bait the parry, but if they read you, they can counter with a mash or a throw. She has the strongest throw in the game, but her main style of mix-ups lose to parry. I didn't know there was even a chance of me playing him in the tournament, so actually the night before I asked him to play a bunch of games with me because I've been struggling personally in the matchup. And since I've been practicing two other characters, Milia again and Ram, to help deal with a couple of, let's say, not fun Baiken matchups, I want to see if I could overcome the Baiken mirror and make it stable. When you're fighting a typical Baiken player, it's a race for resource because the combo she gets off her overhead with meter is so much damage that for some people, it makes up for her not being able to convert all her hits. So I started thinking, if resource is the most important thing, that means I have to be really good in the neutral game. This means cycling between offensive plays like running up really far, preempting with 2H, and preemptive H comboing, and defensive plays like neutral jumping and IED back to Tommy. Our neutral styles are definitely different, but if there's a big difference between him and myself as a player is that I really lean into developing and making characters kind of technical, while he has a pretty straightforward approach to the character. So the damage output between us, for example, is a lot different. Take this kind of combo that I showed before the stardom. So this isn't necessarily the combo that he would do, but it's a kind of standard combo. And the damage is pretty high off this. However, there is certainly room to improve, seeing that she still has the ability to do massive damage with her gun super if you set it up the right way. So my hits end up meaning more than his hits, and I end up winning 3-1. So next I have to play another Happy Chaos, a player named Flane, who I actually ended up playing online before. So the same points end up being pretty important. The only difference is Tiger Pop has far more experience against Baiken than Flane, and it's offline, so there are things that are easier for me to react to in movement. For example, I know many of you strongly dislike Happy Chaos, right? But one of his actual weaknesses is he's not really good at escaping the corner. The main reason why I feel so hard to keep him in the corner is two things. One, he has admittedly very good air normals, like this JD or using J2K. And then the other issue is that if the gun is out, it could be pretty hard because you're always expecting him to do stuff on the ground with the gun. But when he's coming from defense, pulling out the gun is not really an option most of the time. So then the secret problem is we're just playing online. Even though rollback is great, it's just hard to see stuff. So with this in mind, I still use my core strategy against Happy Chaos. And one of the most important things for this patch is simply that it's just really worth bursting him quickly because he does less damage than before, so he'll give you burst back, especially since all his stuff combos and his super is many hits. When he breaks the wall of it, it gives you a ton of burst back as well. So it's really worth it to try to burst him quickly, any opportunity you can get. Even if he baits you, it's not so bad. Don't worry, that's not foreshadowing at all. So even though our back and forth seems pretty even, because of resources, I take it cleanly 3-0. So next I go up against another player on Paragon, Anima. Anima is actually known for playing Ramafall, but she switched to Elfelt when Elfelt dropped. Now, luckily for me, Elfelt is my villain in Exord, so when she came out, I was the first to be on her, and I told myself I'll play her for about 3 weeks. If she's broken, we switch. If she has flaws, we leak them. And I labbed the character a bunch. I played a ton of games with the character. And Baiken can fight Elfelt quite well. Problem number 1 for Elfelt, you're probably going to get tired of seeing this combo, but she just takes a lot of damage. And it is pretty realistic that if there was no burst in this game, Baiken could kill her in 2 combos. Elfelt is a fast character too, but they gave her quite a few weaknesses in neutral compared to the others. Her buttons like 5H are extremely huge, but they're vulnerable to 6P, and they can be low profiled. So her Far Slash, which also has big range, has this problem as well, on top of it not being that fast. So the idea is that you're supposed to run into people's buttons, kind of like what we were talking about before with Leo because of her dash speed. Her dash speed cannot be understated. It feels like she really took Ramathal's old dash speed. So the threat of Elfelt, really, comes from her offense. She has a special move that has overhead and low follow-ups. And the overhead and the low are both unseeable, on top of having follow-ups of their own. The more resource she has, the more mix-up attempts she gets. On top of that, you have to worry about her grenade, which is honestly one of the better special moves in this game, going over all sorts of pokes, in cases beating anti-airs. You really have to find a specific way for your character to beat it, and the way Baiken's normals work, she doesn't beat it trivially. So while it's not so hard to deal with the special move, it is hard to deal with the grenade. Elfelt is similar to Ino in that she tries to overwhelm you with offense. And in a tournament format, it's even harder because you're more stressed out, and Anima recognized this and took a lot of good risks against me. For example, most people are worried about the highs and the lows here, but Elfelt can follow up with throw. Normally it's pretty risky, but in tournament where you're worried about trying to block the low and the high because it doesn't hit at the same time, a well-placed throw, especially if a character with a parry, can be pretty meaningful. On top of that, a couple of unfortunate drop combos made this set really close, but in the last game, I managed to close it 3-2. You might be like, hey, LK, when do you get a break? And my answer is, you don't get one. It is Frosty Faustings. So it is a super major, and one of the things this tournament advertises is that the last day is for hanging out, casuals, having fun, and it's a way for people to travel because some people are trying to leave like Sunday night. You know, people have work on Monday. I'm pretty familiar with this from past jobs. So I started calling this tournament the clay court of fighting games because you, especially since Guilty Gear Strive is the main event, had to play a really long tournament day, especially if you lose. Remember, one of the most important things that helps you win big tournaments, it's gonna sound stupid, is not losing. If you don't lose, you don't have to play as much. When you lose, you have to play a lot more. The good news is beating Anima put me in top 16, which is the same placement I got at CEO Otaku 2023. The bad news is I'm going against one of my tournament demons this time, Razo, who's on FlyQuest. Now Razo plays Leo, so this will be the second time I'd be playing against Leo in the tournament, but Razo also switched to Giovanna around last year's CEO, so around last June. One of my main training partners, Nitro, who is also on FlyQuest, plays a lot of Geo, and I play Geo as well, so I'm actually pretty familiar with that matchup. But Leo also got some buffs recently, so surprise, Leo Whitefang, one of the consistent top tiers in this game, got some buffs, so I run into the Leo. Now, Razo is a top player, so I can't just box their style of Leo into, are you going to just dash block at me or flail at me? Razo's going to use a variety of techniques to try to like get in on me. So the most important factor here is how I deal with Leo's back turn stance. If you struggle against Leo's back turn stance, my teammate Jonathan Tene made a great video about how to defend Leo, which helped me a lot, both on Milia, even though it was a really bad match, and Baiken, who has a far better, arguably advantage matchup against Leo. And the first game was determined by how I dealt with back turn. The first time I got knocked down, I countered a parry. So the second time I got knocked down, Razo delayed looking for the parry, but I happened to counter with one of Baiken's defensive techniques, so the super ended up catching Razo's overhead. So the last knockdown, Razo decides to wait, which based on the previous two guesses, I mashed for the win. with pretty much no hesitation, we return to character select. So some people like going to character select to take a break, take a breath, think about what happened. But in my case, this is not what happened. So Razo counterpicks me with Sin Kisuke. There are whispers of this character being top tier or the best character in the game. Talk about starting from the bottom, and now you hear. There are plenty of high-level players who are thinking of switching to them. Supernoon says he wants to play Sin. Umisho showed her Sin. Pep has played Sin at CEO Taku to close it. And now Razo is playing Sin against me. However, I am 100% sure that Razo does not know how to do Sin versus Baiken. So even though I think it's a disadvantage, I have a strategy ready. So one really annoying thing that Baiken runs into is when characters have moves that are like H Kabari, but better. This move is amazing, but there's just a lot of characters who have moves like this in different ways. And Sen has Beak Driver, which, while it's pretty punishable, it's also very big. And for the cost of a bar, he could make it -3. So my follow-up is never -3. On top of that, his sped up Elk Hunt is impossible to react to, and it goes under my most important poke that I can't even combo off of. And of course, it goes under the chain as well. However, this is not Exert. He doesn't have an air Beak Driver in this game, so using neutral jump well was critical in order to win the match. By neutral jumping, I can assess whether or not she's using Elk Hunt and then repositioning as needed. To be honest, I thought if Razo stuck with Leo, we probably would have had a really close set, like a 3-2, 3-1 type of set. Thanks to the Sin swap, I cleaned that one up 3-0. Remember, I'm in the losers bracket, so if I drop a set, my tournament run is finished. And right now, I'm sniffing top 8 at a super major. I've had my great results in the past, but I have not actually gotten top 8 at a super major in Guilty Gear Strive. In Guilty Gear, really, you can make an argument for things like the first Summer Jam after EVO in the first year where I got 4th. But generally, I'm always placing like top 16 or 9th, like getting 9th at 2 CEOs or 13th at the recent CEO Taku. So needless to say, I'm amped up. And my opponent to qualify is probably the most poetic one I could possibly have. That's right, it's my old main Milia Rage. Sorani from Greece playing Milia. There's quite a bit of lore behind this one, the main one being about the character herself. I wasn't even planning on playing Milia in Exert. I was originally going to play Ram using a strategy I learned pretty early of play the new character in the old game. But I was so inspired by Woshige's Milia play that I also picked up Milia. Then when Strive came out, even though in hindsight Milia was pretty weak, I started off really strong, getting a 4th place finish at the EVO NA online tournament, plus having a bunch of good results like the Summer Jam I mentioned, 9th at the first CEO, 7th at the first Texas Showdown, into another 9th, unfortunately, at the CEO the next year. As time went on with the character though, I started feeling worse and worse about playing matchups because I kept running into the same dead ends, mainly Nagoriyuki and especially Leo Whitefang. And after EVO 2022, after a loss in winners, I pretty much had enough. And despite some buffs that were pretty good for the character, I decided to make a change to an unestablished character that people said was strong, which is Baiken. Strive Milia has a lot of tricks, and there's a lot of examples in the community of people showing a clip of Milia doing something, and they're like, man, Milia is so good. Why do Milia players say she's not great, accusing them of downplaying? And this is always where I used to shake the Zato players' hands because it was always stuff that is just not a mix-up, or like if they just knew the solution to it, they would not get hit. And frankly, I rely on that stuff too when I play on Milia sometimes. So having to go up against one of the current best Milia players to earn my first Super Major top 8 in North America, that's not EVO, that's not a Season 1 tournament, you could not make this up. It's like, it felt like an anime moment to me. I also actually played Sorani before the tournament because she said she probably would have to play a Baiken Shine. So I played her a couple of games just to warm her up. That being said though, I'm probably one of the hardest draws she could have gotten because I quite literally made the character. Many of the tactics that people use today are tactics that I came up with. Of course, she has some new things as well, between buffs and just things people found over time, but the general structure of the character was something that I developed. Now, Milia is one of the fastest characters in the game. Unlike Chip, she has this double air dash that's half the distance of a normal air dash. But it's very easy for her jump H to cross you up, and she has a lot of fast, basically unseeable guessing games she could do from neutral to offense. And from both watching and playing Serani, this is probably her strongest point as a player. So my job was simple. Hold the line. Don't get overwhelmed by how fast both Milia and Serani herself were playing. Surprisingly though, one of the most important parts of the set was not the speed at which Serani was playing, but actually one of Baiken's buffs, which is to the tether, the S Kabaddi. In this patch, they made it +3 instead of +2. And on top of that, if you have the tether on them, you can use the held version to do a combo. It wasn't really common knowledge, but since she came out, she had both her normal throw, which applied the tether immediately, and actually a held version of the throw, which kind of tosses you away and doesn't apply the tether. This thing had pretty niche usage and basically no one used it. I did find a couple of uses for this, but again, one of the things was so difficult, only a robot could do it, frankly. And the other thing is just a safe jump, which you could do anyway if you put on the tether. The tether is critical. So Milia doesn't have a lot of HP. She has the second lowest life in the game. If Milia gets hit with a mix-up, not only will she take a lot of damage, but also Baiken will basically immediately get 50 meter, which pretty much decides the game. So getting thrown by Baiken as Milia is painful. It's painful for everybody, but it's especially painful for Milia. So this coming up is really threatening for Milia because she could die. So for my notes, 3 things pretty much decided this set. 2 things under Serani's control, 1 that was unfortunately not under her control. 1 comes from after S Kabaddi. So again, if I use the formerly niche throw, now I get a full combo. And this is pretty big damage on Milia. Most people won't just let you throw them, they'll try to do something. But if you use the 5P, they might try to block for a little bit and then pick something. So instead, I start with 2K. Milia has a 4-frame move, just like Baiken, but Milia's is on crouch, so hers is technically stronger, and it's easier for her to combo out of hers after mashing it a few times than Baiken. So for example, okay, so she got a combo of 3 mash jabs into S-Disc, where there is no way I'm getting that off 3. Not even 2. Has to be 1. So this conditioning over 5 games was critical because I closed the set after punishing her for this with this. So I got a bunch of resources immediately at meter. The other thing is probably an experience thing. So I don't actually know how long Serani's been playing fighting games, but I've been competing in just competitive games in general since like middle school, between trading cards and then Smash and then eventually going on to Melty Blood and competing in fighting games. And frankly, I get nervous in tournaments, but after playing for a while, I decided to just accept being nervous. Some people try to fight it. I just accept it. So I kind of noticed Serani was doing some things that gave me the impression that she was pretty nervous. For example, generally, when Milia does this, she has a small suite of options she could use in order to discourage you from mashing, and then she could mix you up from there. So she could do something like this. This would just hit me and she would get a combo. 6P loses 2, so you would have to like air throw her. And air throw, you cannot jump a 2P here, for example. But a really common one Serani would do to me, which was puzzling, was something like this. This is actually a huge turn steal. After a few of these interactions over our first like 2 or 3 games, I started being like, I don't think she wants to RPS me. I think she just wants to kill me quickly because she's really nervous. So in the first round of our last game, in a really critical moment, she bursts. So when people ask me for advice, I usually ask them if they want to hear the advice I would give myself or if they want me to just like be nice. Usually people pick the former, and I remember just thinking that was a trash burst. If I bursted like that, I would be beating myself up the whole day. But that was like the final nail of the coffin as far as like nerves go. But again, there was one thing that was not in her control, and that comes from this. So if you see this, you might be like, Milia's not attacking you, but anyone who sees this knows what Milia really wants is this. So there were a couple of players who were using Victrix pads who were complaining that the pads were honestly just not good. I actually use a Victrix fight stick, and it's funny because it's the best stick I've ever used. I love this stick. The only thing I've replaced on this stick is the lever, just because I've had it for so long that it was just time to update the lever. And this came up a couple of times in this set. And in my notes, I wrote down, if I didn't drop one of the punishes to these, this could have been a 3-1 set, but I was nervous too. So of all these factors, I do end up winning the set 3-2 and qualifying for the top 8 later that day. So from here, I do actually want to go into a little bit more analysis, mostly because we actually just had the footage. The rest of my tournament run was all off stream, including qualifiers, which I know people were pretty upset about, but the top 8 was all streamed. So I'll be able to go through some of these, especially because people were like, why did you do some of the things that you do? I got a lot of questions about that on stream. So first is a really rare opportunity for a double jeopardy at a tournament, because he beat me in the top 48 qualifier positioning, right? The only way we could run into each other was pretty much here. He had a bit of more of a push in the bracket and then qualified from losers over Churara, the Japanese Kai and Sin player. So I am definitely worried about this because, again, he did send me to losers, and if I lost him again, that means I lost to the same person twice. We're not trying to have that. The big thing about this match then and the way I'm playing is that I'm trying to swing in a scapegoat sometimes if they don't do it too much, because if they hit me, it doesn't really matter. He doesn't do as much damage as he did before. If not, that he spent HP to do like nothing. His damage is down, so I'm trying to burst him a lot, and then from there it's just doing my best in neutral, because in the end the neutral is still not in your favor. Like, his hits mean more than you, and his normals making you block mean more than you as well. Now, this round is actually the first moment where people are like, what is wrong with you? So people don't know how the reticle works. Moving, like fast actions like backdashing and jumping, cause the reticle to not lock on. So I was backdashing like that specifically to get the reticle off me. And most of the time, a Happy Chaos player will continue to run at you, and then you would get the reticle off you and you could like fight back. But he actually held his ground here and actually in the previous set. So that was like the last check of yo, ayo, like he really is just not gonna run at me when I'm trying to get the reticle off me. This was a pretty clean game from him though, and I didn't really get like my second burst. I do expect to get my burst back every round. Sometimes if you play it right, you'll get 2 bursts around versus Happy Chaos. So in game 2, I do another round start. It's really important to play a rock, paper, scissors game at round start, because again, if he gets away from you, he wins. This is going to be a repeating theme when we talk about this. Even though he baits my burst, when you get wall splat in this patch, starting from 3.0, the person gets a lot of their bursts back. So it doesn't really matter. So he'd be doing like 24 hits into wall splat, I would get all that back. Unfortunately for him, he messes up, and I turn it around to combo. Normally, I would side swap there. I can't actually tell you why the combo dropped either, but I would side swap there and maybe wall break. But again, a big thing is he almost automatically beats you in neutral. So usually there's spots where I would just break the wall against somebody, where I would not break the wall against him without any resource. With that in mind, we move into round number 2. So RBS again, put on the tether. So a lot of matchup problems I think are solved by tether, mostly in that you get a ton of resource, and you do a ton of damage, and you can just threaten people. They can't back away from you. Things that are safe normally are not safe in tether. There's actually a lot of intricacies to this move, and it's hard to practice against. So it is a really important part of my game plan to get on tether, especially if I can get it on without using Wild Assault. So you're going to see me kind of mixing my methods of doing that. This game was pretty clean though. Baiken baiting a burst means a lot more than some other characters baiting a burst, because she does a lot of damage and her whole goal is to stay near you. And one of her biggest problems outside of conversions is characters bursting her away, right? I mentioned before that one of the big reasons that like I struggled against Jacko is that when Jacko bursts Baiken, she's winning, and when Baiken bursts Jacko, she's also winning. But it's not like that anymore. Now I have a good situation here. The boxer Yozatsu uses his meter, so now I have a meter advantage and a small burst advantage. So again, even though I'm getting mixed, not a lot of damage. The parry evens it out. I have some resource, show the tech. It is important to actually strike throw people and see what their patterns are and stuff. Baiken's throw is the best throw of the game, so I really try to vary it against strong players. Usually against someone who I think is not as competent, I will try to find their pattern and just abuse it. Like, some people always try to tech throw, some people only use a certain defense technique, some people are always trying to mash you, but a lot of like the international level players kind of vary how they do things, so you do have to show them that yes, you are actually willing to run over there. So here, as you see, I got my burst back, but it's the end of this round, so there's basically 2 ways to play that round. And I decided to just kind of force it, because if I have the burst advantage in round 3, that would be really good for me. Again, I start that missing that 2H is a big deal, but it's fine. So I block. Again, this is what I mean by him making me block is so valuable because he's so plus all the time. Takes his turn. I fuzzy jump out. If you watch me play, this type of escape is pretty common for me. Using the Wild Assault into Tether, he bursts immediately because he knows it's important. It's pretty likely I will get my burst back to this round, which is great. This is another one people are talking about. My 2D is 2 hits, so that if he swings into me, then there's a chance I'll hit him. Viking actually has a lot of counterplay for swinging into the Scapegoat. Some of them really require sending it though. Like here, I'm kind of stubborn and I try to react to the success with parry where you have to just dial it in. But like I said, I got my burst back, and thanks to my Japanese guts, I'm going to endure for a guessing game. It's rough, but I can make something happen. Thanks to the new burst, I can burst like that. He counter BRCs. I thought he was going to respect, but since he had the gun out, there's no point in him waiting, so he backs off and clutches a win. So in game number 4, I pull up once again. Anytime you see me do dash 2S to HC, it definitely means I'm looking for a round start curse. He's got the Scapegoat, but I've been wrong on Scapegoat a lot, so I decided to respect it. The hard bait there is pretty clutch, I'm not gonna lie. So he's up. I have been bursting quickly. Again, it's a really important part of my strategy. You can see that the main points you don't want to burst are jump cancelable moves, and also anytime he reloads in a combo. However, I do have a lot of resource, and he gets a YRC. I don't know if he actually wanted that, or if he wanted like a BRC forward and the Yozan-sen screwed him up. And then my mix-up ends up closing the round. So despite the burst, I do almost have my burst back and I'm up a round, so it ends up being okay. Getting the early Escapade is really important here. So I get a big combo. He's gonna burst because he has to. He doesn't want Baikun with resource. Even though he baited my burst the previous round, again, it's not a big deal because since he broke the wall with super, I got all that burst back. So even if he wins this round, I have burst. I could burst this round if I wanted to. I catch another backdash Escapade. I am in meter penalty, but it's fine. Blocks low, hits me with YRC. So he's getting meter back really quick, but I'm looking at his resource here. I see he runs out of bullets, and I close the game. So then we go to game number 5, the last game. So we both run up there. Again, I have to just do something at the start of the round. I burst immediately because, again, it's a great idea. I get on him, trying to keep him in the corner. The J2K gets me for throw. Has a lot of advantage. Looks like he's kind of baiting parry. I was parrying the other side. Ooh, big mistake there. It's gonna sound funny. I did dash throw. Maybe a little shaky hands, but ends up working out in my favor. A little luck in my side. RC into pressure. And I noticed he was teching a lot of these throws, so I go for the dash cancel into ID back Yozan-sen. Big money for me. So this brings us into round 2 of game 5. So I pull up again. Definitely heart rates are up. That H combo is 0 on hit, so I try to go for a throw reset, doesn't work. Like in combo things just happening. Whole tournament's like that. Cross. Keeping me in the corner for a resource. I'm actually not sure how good that is of HC. I usually think of HC always breaking wall, but thankfully we catch a backstep with Escapade again. And in this moment, this is actually pretty uncommon this patch, but since his burst is coming back really quickly, I use the Wild Assault to slightly delay it so I can get to a point where I could bait the burst. And because of that, I do more damage and then close the round by just pulling up after the burst. I'm super, super happy. There are people who are like, what did you tell him? I didn't actually tell him anything. I was actually making sure I didn't break anything on stage because, you know, if you watch a lot of fighting game tournaments, you might have seen people like break stuff on stage, pull off headsets, things like that. So I was actually just being careful of not breaking anything. And then, of course, I was really happy just because I didn't get double jeopardy. Like, people were like, man, you really popped off on him. Do you have a problem with him? No. I'm like, it's the first time I met him. He's a nice guy. But he would have beaten me twice in the bracket if I lost that. So I was just really, really, really stoked to win that match. So this leads us to another pretty difficult match. So now that we're in the top 8, the tournament was seeded quite well. And basically, all the top seeds, almost all the top seeds are in this finals. I'm really the odd one out based on how they ranked everybody. And frankly, you have to just push through that. You can't really complain about that. You have to just earn that spot to get that high seeding. So now I'm in battle for 5th against Leffen. So this is actually the second time I would have played against him in a fighting game tournament. The first time actually being in Dragon Ball Fighters. in season 1, so it's actually been a long time. Again, in the same matchup. Again, not a great matchup, but again, also not as bad as previous patches. I think he probably has like a slight advantage now as opposed to just like hard winning. So I got a really early mix up on him. We pull up, try to fight back. She's not fast enough to quite get over there, but I really do my best. Here he's gonna break and give me all that resource back. So even though the damage is pretty good, I already got my burst back. So remember, I bursted him already, and now I got my burst back of critical. Since he doesn't have resource and he's peeling off, I'm able to use gun, and I use the throw tech there just to see where he's at. Trying to bait his YRC, he doesn't bite. But he tries to shake my backdash, I hold my ground with far slash. You go into round 2. So here I slide under. Most people would probably air backdash there, but he actually holds his air position, keeping the corner space, using blue. I got a little bit greedy here. That was a pretty good throw from him. And now he's going to break the wall on me. Again, any time I block or get hit by Happy Chaos, it's actually a really big deal, even though the damage is down, just because I don't have a lot of ways to get out. She has stuff she can do, of course. This round, I basically decide by this point, it's not really worth bursting at this point. I have 2 ways I can play it. I can hope he gets his burst back and try to get it away from him. So I try to aim for that. Since he was a little bit higher than normal, my 2H whiffed, so I wasn't able to go under his normal, and he kills me here. We're basically burst even at this point. So then, going into round number 3, I protect myself, chasing the backdash, but sometimes you hit with the end of 2H, and even though I do the input for the special move, it doesn't come out. It's like, it's not really, unless you're really slamming on it, it's pretty hard to fix. Tanigaish, I chase the backdash, or really the curse with H Kabari. So again, I'm trying to move to make the reticle not go on me. That's why you see all those weird movement, mashing backdash, mashing jump, bar slash into RC. It's a good combo for me, but it drops again. Again, this is a pretty standard combo. Like, I feel like I've done this to HC2 and it works fine. Then when I went back in training mode, I couldn't replicate the mistake. So I don't know, maybe someone didn't want me to win. I don't know, because that happened a lot. So this is pretty rough. This is fine. I had the life advantage, but he has the neutral control. He could mix me up at any time. He drops a combo. Luckily, I slip by bursts. So at the PRC here, I decide to stall. He tries to hit my landing, but me stalling twice screws up his timing. Now I'm cursed, so this is pretty tough. Take it astray. He focuses up so he can have some control. I use a defensive burst so I don't have to block, roll, or dust, or throw. Now, in a previous patch, I just died, but now his damage is kind of down and I'm tanky. I fight here. And this, I was pretty fortunate. I was actually doing FD while doing 6P on the other side. It ended up working out, so his JD kind of missed, and in that situation, it wasn't a punish. It was because he couldn't block us with the gun. So now we go into game 2. He focuses up and pulls up. I burst immediately, pull up, chase super hard in order to get position. I chase so hard that I run full screen at 2H, so I'm really trying to run him down. Lycan is definitely one of the slower characters in this game. Go for the low the first time. Thing about Leffen is I don't really know where he's at in this matchup. Again, Lycan is not that common, so my general advantage against international players is that they won't really know all the stuff that I'm doing. That being said, he breaks the wall on me and wins pretty cleanly. I think that I tried to do a delayed jump and I was just kind of uncertain what to do. So now we go into round 2. There's a toss. There's a toss again. He's quite advantageous and he actually holds his ground pretty well, so I burst right away, but he's able to get a good position. This actually, again, one of the main reasons why this matchup is a struggle is that your burst, while it does more than it used to, it doesn't do a lot against him because she's not fast. So here people really ask me about this, and again, frankly, if this was any other character, I would have simply broken the wall. In the moment, honestly, heart rate's up, nerves are up, I'm embracing my nerves, and I'm just really thinking about what to do. He is around up, and he has meter and burst. I have none, and in that moment, I actually didn't see my meter. So in hindsight, it probably would have been a good idea to break the wall, but one of the main ways you lose to characters like Happy Chaos and Jacko and Faust with Baiken is returning them to neutral when you don't have to or when you don't have a resource. That's one of the most helpful things about the addition of Wild Assault, for example. So with the information I had at the time, I decided to just keep my position and instead tether up, which if I'm correct here, I just win. But I get greedy again, and I go for something that beats like delayed jump or mashing, and he mashes throw. But it's not so bad. I do get a big chunk of my burst back, but it's a good chunk of damage from him. He pulls up with roll and I slide out. That being said, now I have resource and burst to play with, but he gets me right away and gets me with a combo. So, you know, he got this back throw off Escabari, but this is the type of fear I have in that, like, basically, zoners, again, like Asuka, like Happy Chaos, like Jacko, like Faust, if I break the wall with no resource, then that can also happen to me. So I really have to clutch it. Thanks to having my burst, I was able to clutch it, and we go to round 3 anyway. Okay, he gets a really good start on me. It's not great. He's going to use Wild Assault to break, but there's a pretty decent chance I'll get my burst back. So he pulls up here, gets the throw. Now we're not in a good spot. So he's going to do a bunch of damage. I'm actually usually surprised that they would use this here because, you know, he has a resource advantage. So he could have had 50 on me by breaking the Wild Assault, but he's going to have 50 on me anyway because I'm positive and running at me. I chase his backdash with ID. Big call out. Escabari. It's my only chance. Okay, take my turn. Go for a mix. So again, probably something he hasn't seen before. So hits me to dust and wins. I give him his props for enduring. Him going back to neutral means he has a big advantage on me, which means he can pull up on me and mix me up one more time. He doesn't do that much damage compared to before, but I had no HP. You might be like, man, okay, you might be relying too much on knowledge checks. What's going on? But I understand that I play an uncommon character that's not common in the meta, and it's really important to come up with new techniques that your opponent is not ready for. So I'm constantly trying to push characters. That's why I'm so focused on pushing characters, because I'm constantly trying to find things that will work in tournament that an opponent might not be ready for. I underestimate the tether time. He respects my tatami here, and I have meter, so I tether him up. And even though he's been mashing throw, this time I'm kind of out of range, so I go for another kind of frame trap thing. Chase the curse, I'm not cursed, but he corners himself. Thanks to the tatami mat, I'm able to see him jump, and honestly, this is like a runaway round for me. I'm feeling really good right now. Resource-wise, we're kind of evenish, and he uses his burst. Puts me in the corner. The throw tech takes the curse off, and I whip punish of Yozan-sen into a combo. Now, I'm a little too far. This error has happened a lot. That one is pretty normal. So he's not aware there that the second hit of tatami is advantageous. So this is another one people ask me about, and when I hit this, frankly, if this is actually a problem of I knew this was plus, so I actually didn't think he was gonna swing. So if I just did a normal string of like /2H H copy, I would have just won the game because I would have just RC'd, do like my normal combo. But I was like, oh, it's plus, and he's sitting there, so I'm going to set this thing up to get a mix up. So here is like, it's not a weird splat, and honestly anything would have killed, but I tried to input super and it didn't come out. And instead it came out as this, which is crazy. I wasn't trying to do anything fancy. To be quite honest, this is literally just a fumble. And then I start panicking, like, what do I do? I'm looking at all my resource and I actually don't see how much HP he has until here, where I'm like, oh snap, I should have just broke the wall, right? So again, heart rate's kind of high, people are nervous, and Baiken especially, and I'm sure like all high-level players are trying to process as much info as they can, but Baiken especially, you're doing this quite a bit. I actually like keep a routine of like not eating over a certain amount of food, and I drink the kombucha mostly because it doesn't have too much caffeine. It has one bottle has half the amount of caffeine as a cup of coffee, so I don't crash while I'm playing. So I really do what I can to try to be in my best physical performance while I'm playing. And in the moment, I was like, wow, I cannot believe of all the things I'd missed 2 quarter circles, right? However, I do go for a mix-up to try to fix it, and if I didn't backdash, I also would have hit him. So this is a great recovery from him. He breaks the wall here and goes for Wild Assault. So the Wild Assault here is really well structured. I actually don't think this is true in hindsight, but it's a pretty fast sequence, and he's able to sneak in a mix-up here. But the mix-up doesn't do too much damage, and he actually chooses to keep the wall, which I'm actually pretty surprised by. I don't totally know why he would pick that when his character has like an advantageous position in neutral most of the time. But he goes for a throw on me, and he's backdash BRC. Now, the normal thing that I'm kind of known for is using Yozan-sen here, and I missed this too because of his PRC back, where I think if I did my JP, it would have worked, and I get punished into another mix-up into low, and he kills me with the super. So an unfortunate couple of fumbles, and I try to fight through it. When I was a kid, I used to play music. I played like saxophone for like 12 years, and really early, I was taught to not worry too much about mistakes. So people told me a lot of people would have tilted over that, but I just kept it pushing. I was like, let's keep the stream strategy. Everything you're doing is fine. And, it's 1-1 in round, so it's fine. So we're back to the neutral control here. Scapegoat on screen. This is actually one of the main examples of me striking in a scapegoat where it's not worth it, because he got actually a really big return. Most of the time, he doesn't get that big of a return. That's the whole point of using the move. But it was a very, very good awareness by him to use the super focus in order to get a combo. So we go from 2-1 me to 2-1 him, and you could see you could see by how I acted after losing that I'm like, F. Like, I definitely should be up. But again, we keep it pushing. These things happen. So we go to game number 4. Trying to use a variety of movement between jumping and dash blocking in order to master the reticle. So there's actually less advantage on the steady aim. That's actually one of the nerfs he has. So even though I'm slow, I'm able to pull up more. With punches my far slash with the gun. And this breaks just from like really far. Steady aim, pulls up. I noticed the whiff. I didn't really realize I had meter. And I didn't get a counter hit. I guess Tiger Pop I did. But thankfully this fuzzy jump into cross up, and I was pretty surprised when he blocked it. I don't know if he's seen it or he just thought it was the same as the mid-screen setup, but it was really good awareness. But thankfully, I threw him into a combo. Some people ask me about this decision, and if you watch the Japanese Arxis stream, they actually, what they usually do is they get a Japanese player who performed well at some other Arc Revo event to commentate with them, and Steven, the player I beat to qualify for top 8 in Brazil, explained this. So when this is done properly, and I did not do it properly, you actually can unscale the extra hit of the gun when you PRC. So when I did this combo, so it's not for flash, it's actually what I thought was the best choice. There's actually a way to do a clean hit off this throw, but I didn't remember because I just found it before this tournament. I didn't remember if it was easy to do the high damage one to Happy Chaos, and then I also didn't remember which is the way to get the auto-timed easy one. And some people are like, oh, if you just did a normal one, it would have been fine. But in the moment, I made the call to do to go for the PRC bug because I noticed I had the meter, but it didn't work. So he's left with a pixel. I go for a little mix. He spends half his burst. Thankfully, I used JS in the scapegoat, so I'm able to escape. Then navigating around this, he has the 1 HP scapegoat, which is just a pretty rough time, and I pull up with far slash. So I'm still in it. In round 2, I chase, and he mashes the frame trap, so I have a pretty big advantage now into the throw. Funny enough, he gets hit by this variant. I've basically already been going cross up, showing him different methods of doing it, because there's different frame kills you can use. And he bursts by 4 slash. So the thing is though, maybe my 5H would have reached, but I just do far slash RC, and it was counter hit, so that one was pretty easy to react to. So with that, and a short break, and thinking about how, man, this could have been a 3-1, but we keep it pushing. We just keep it pushing. We go into game 5. Backs off, gets me with the reticle. Sometimes, even when you're moving, the non-curse reticle will just get you. It's definitely one of the annoying things about playing him. I burst him quickly, go for the air throw, but he has a clutch J2K, and he's going to get a big combo off this throw, quite a big combo for him, but misjudges the wall splat, so we're back in neutral. So again, I swing into scapegoat, and here he's going to have a pretty big lead. Again, he always wall breaks, and I think that he has the same miss input as me, except he doesn't complete. So a couple things could have happened. He could have thought that the curse ball would have given him the meter, and then he didn't get it, and that's why, or maybe he missed a wild assault input. That also could happen. I also fumbled a wall break too in this set, so understandable. He just completed his where I didn't. So now he's on set point. So pulling up the 2S for A+, I try to mash, and I burst. Maybe my last burst, runs straight through the curse, drops his combo, but I can't get to him. I try to chase a backdash, and he holds his ground. So he has a lot of resource here, gets me with a throw, and frankly, when he gets this throw, I have like a flashback to a moment that actually happened to me like 10 years ago. So similar situation actually, playing against an Evo champion, knocked down in a strike throw for guess for game. And he runs up, and in Melty Blood, there's actually a ton of throw protection. So in this strike throw, where he also has a mechanic called Heat, which means if I mash, he will automatically burst and knock me down, and then do the same thing again. In my moment of awakening, I do wake up command grab when he can't grab me. And in this game, you actually can't burst when you're getting comboed off a grab. And then I run up and do a DP grab option select. So now he could not burst the whole time. And now I almost have enough meter to get my healing back. And I grab him again. And now I'm going to be healing in a little bit. I got it back. I miss it. And then I close by anti-airing just like this. So I don't know why, but this moment right here was so similar of playing an Evo champ. He knocks me down. He has a big advantage. He just threw me. In this game, of course, you have to worry about strike, throw with resource, so he can protect his throw with resource. So I delay wake up Yozansen, and I actually forget the combo because they changed the Yozansen pop-up. So here I bait his YRC. Normally I could do a lot of damage, but again, I have no burst for Wild Assault and no meter to break the wall. So I decided to do a short, small combo to not break the wall, similar to the choice I made earlier in the round. We set up to tether him and get a big hit, and I have plenty of resource to work with. So here I make another kind of not common choice. Many of you watching this would be like, if you super, you kill him. You are correct. And I was like, yes, I'm going to super him and kill him. But then I was like, wait a minute. People are screaming and jumping up and down. It was kind of quiet when he was running it, but people are screaming at my past couple choices. My heart is racing right now. I don't know how my opponent feels, but if he's a stone cold killer right now, I'm going to make his heart race too. I'm going to, instead of killing him, I'm going to break the wall. And while I'm going to be down on resource next round burst-wise, he's probably going to give it back to me, like I've been saying over and over for the past couple of Happy Chaos games. So let me hit him with a mix-up that he either doesn't know Baiken has or knows Baiken has, but you can't react to, that probably, unless you watch my stream, you have not seen before. So I go for the blue Water Assault instead of killing and go for my trademark BRC Yozansen mix-up. My heart rate is up, so I'm hoping his heart rate is up too. So now we're in the last round. Again, I'm down burst, but it's pretty likely he's going to give me a ton of burst back. Plus, when you're dying, you also build a lot more burst back. That's the only reason why I was able to Wild Assault in the first place. He gets across, doesn't really lead into anything. I have corner position, tech to throw. I chase him again. I have a pretty good position here. Try to get a Yozansen. Get the tether on. This is good. That usually doesn't miss. I bait the RC. So here's kind of a painful point. So they changed her close slash. Her close slash used to bounce and not change when you used it multiple times in a combo, but now it does. So this is one of those things I checked after. I could have put in a 6H and do my normal style mix-up. So actually I'm going for my normal style mix-up that requires like a specific timing. But when you look at it here, it looks like I'm clearly going to overshoot, and I do. So I missed the mix-up that's supposed to go same side, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure this will just hit him and I win. And I hit his backdash, but unlike characters like Soul and actually Milia, who would be able to combo off this far slash, I cannot, even if I use Wild Assault. So the thing that I've been repeating in the previous two sets of I don't want to send Happy Chaos back to neutral, I accidentally did, and he has 100 meters. So when that happens, I'm like, oh, we lose these. Like I will do my best, but my best chance of winning is probably gone. So I get over the curse pull, and he whiffs 6p into another 6p. So I only have 50 more meter to worry about. He holds his ground this time, and this doesn't kill. If he breaks the wall, though, he's in a bad position. He gets me at the low, and I die. So with this, I finish 5th at Frosty Faustings. So in the moment, honestly, I'm pretty disappointed because I know I literally had him, but I did play my best, and I think I recovered from my mistakes pretty well. And if it wasn't for just like small things, like especially the far slash knocking people away like that when other characters like Soul, when they hit their the far slash, I guess backdash, they get a combo. If Baiken gets that, then like I closed not just that set, but way more sets more comfortably. So I was really proud of my run. It was also pretty fortunate that I didn't run into too many bad Baiken matchups. So I did play against 4 Happy Chaos players during the tournament, 2 of them being the same person, Tiger Pop, but still that's a lot considering I went 10-2, so that's a third of my run. But I didn't have to play any Nagoro Yuki players, any Axel players, any Faust players. the type of things that I usually run into that are like my dead end matchups, I didn't run into. So it also helped me reinforce the fact that if I find ways of dealing with my character's bad matchups, I could have runs like this much more often. And it was really rewarding to see all the various things that I've done since I picked her up, and also from labbing her in patches, all just kind of come together in a really good way. But yeah, let me know what you think. This is pretty much by far my longest tournament recap, I think. Since basically none of my sets were streamed except for top 8, I wanted to try to do it a little bit differently and try to make a story out of it. So let me know what you guys think. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Like and subscribe if you guys feel like it, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.